Dr. Wily, the legendary mad scientist who constantly did battle with the blue hero Megaman. He'd pop his head up all the time in the ye old games. By the time the X series came out, it was far enough in the future that Dr. Wily passed away. While Wily did in fact pass, was he really gone? Many years later, thanks to a particular game, we get some hard evidence that he is in fact still around. However, before that, rumors spread amongst the community on if Wily was roaming, particularly with a robotic avatar. Aside from fans, sourcebooks even teased these theories. Today we're going to look at these claims in what has been known as the Wily theory. To look deep into this, let's first address the biggest elephant in the room. Is Wily alive and or active in the X series? The theory sounds outlandish on the surface. Believe me, I get it, but not all of it is a theory. Rather, Wily being alive, to a degree, during the events of Mega Man X, has been confirmed. At Mega Man X5, the story revolves around Sigma infecting a space colony with a virus, and spreading his virus all over Earth, with the end goal being to bathe Zero in the virus, so that Zero can awaken to his true self. The plan is lightly alluded to in a few cutscenes, but at the end of the game, Sigma himself talks about the plan in depth. He somehow met an old man, who informed him that the Zero running around wasn't the real Zero, and advises Sigma on how to awaken Zero to his true self. This is, of course, referring to how Wily intended Zero to be. Sigma talks about this old man more, mentioning that he has created countless robots in the past, speaks as if he could be Zero's creator, has a grudge against X, and built Sigma's new body, which is very much like Gamma from Mega Man 3, a super robot Wily himself helped build. The name of this body is even Final Sigma W. Like, I wonder what the W stands for. Wumbo? I bet it's Wumbo. All of these things very much align with Wily. Not to mention, the first boss in the Zero space is a devil, a series of battle robots that Wily loved. There's also a giant Wily emblem in the background. Oh, and the devil turns into Wily Machine 6. Like, that's not a clue at all. So, pretty much everything is set and sprinkled right in front of our faces. But if you needed another source, look no further than an interview in 2008 with KG and Fume, who stated Wily had died in between the series, but was brought back by the virus. So there, from the mouth of the man himself, is the hard proof that Wily is alive and roaming. The virus mentioned there is the original Maverick virus, a program Wily had been working on to destroy robots from the inside out, that later went on to merge and evolve with Sigma to become the dreaded Sigma virus. With this information dropped on us, old theories gain new foundation. If Wily was digital all this time, had he shown up before? Well, we enter the main point of the theory. Is Sergis actually Dr. Wily? I know what you're thinking, because I thought it too. Sergis is this nobody from X2 who practically no one remembers because, in all honesty, he's lame. I get it. Agile was very much the fan favorite, while Sergis is just like this old fart who kinda just lingers around. He spoke cryptically about some nonsense whose only real purpose seemed to be annoying players with his giant cannon tankinator, costing people lives and sub-tanks because it was stupidly hard. So yeah, I get it. He's lame. But you have to dig into Sergis to understand his actual importance. It's not thrown in your face like a dodgeball during gym class. So let's take a look at who Sergis even is first, as this will kind of lay down the foundation to know just what kind of Reploid we're talking about here. Sergis appears in X2 as the leader of the Counter Hunters. He's calculating and a bit ambitious. Many sourcebooks even compare him to the legendary mad scientist, Spoiler,
That's Wily.
he's the leader of the X-Hunters, or Counter-Hunters, with the main goal being to revive Zero. The Counter-Hunters themselves have Zero's parts, spoiler,
This gonna be real important later on.
and need his control chip, essentially his brain. They have a series of exchanges with the Hunters, and in some of these exchanges are where we really want to zoom in with our handy-dandy magnifying glass. The means of which Sergis talks is interesting, because in the localized English version of Mega Man X2, Sergis talks like an idiot spouting nonsense, being extremely vague and trying to use fancy words that I assume at the time were chosen to make him sound wise.
I am Sergis. I cannot allow you to stop the unification. It's for the good of all.
Yeah, it's weird, I know. So, Mega Man has a known history of translations being off and full of typos.
Legs go, Lan!
So, it shouldn't come as any shock to anyone that a good portion of the time, these games were translated horribly. I mean, really bad horribly. Frankly, X2 might be the worst of them. So, we need to dig into the Japanese text, and then translate it correctly. Even Google Translate does a better job of deciphering what Sergis is actually saying rather than this localized release. Looking at when the Counter Hunters contacted the Hunter base to challenge them, Sergis says something of interest.
X.
In English. It's just something plain.
Greetings. We have all of Zero's parts.
Like on the outside, that might not seem like anything special, but there's two ways to view it, and both, frankly, are relevant. Sergis mistakes X for Mega Man, then corrects himself. I mean, this is rather odd, given how Mega Man is forgotten. The second way we can look at it is that there's some static before he speaks, and the start of his message gets cut off. So he's simply referring to X as Rockman or Mega Man X. When localized, people refer to X as Mega Man X often, but in the Japanese scripts, that's far from the case. Sergis is the only one to call him that outside of X's creator, Dr. Light. It's interesting to note that he is aware of the Rockman name, given how X never goes by it. It's eyebrow-raising that Sergis is familiar enough with such classified information. Later on in the game, in the final stages, that is where we get some real insight. Upon defeat, Sergis in the localized version says,
It's impossible. The prophecy must be fulfilled.
which is like, what? What nonsense are you babbling about, old man? If the prophecy was me kicking your butt, it was fulfilled. Fear not. Originally, he said something much deeper.
Am I going to be destroyed here and now? I lost again to a forgotten memento, robot of light. What a shame.
This is huge. We, the viewers, know who Dr. Light is. We know he made X. The world, however, doesn't know this. X's origins are kept a secret. His sealed location is a forbidden place to go, so Reploids don't know he's the foundation to him. Thanks to Maverick Hunter X, we see that X himself doesn't even know that Light is his creator.
Light? I think I know this guy.
As well, in X's profile for X1 through 3 in the Legacy Collection, each of them say that his creation or origin is a mystery. For Sergis to make this claim of being defeated by a creation of Light, one has to ask, how does he know this? This quote plays out even if you skip the first encounter with Sergis, making the reference to this being multiple losses more perplexing. This lost in translation quote brings so much to the table. Sergis' quote is referenced in the Compendium of Rockman X, stating, "These remarks insinuate some kind of likely antagonism with Dr. Wright." This would mean Sergis has some personal beef with Light, not just with his blue spandex wearing son. But that isn't all on Sergis. Quotes are one thing, actions are another, so let's uncover the biggest factor, Zero. So if you're here, I want to assume you've played some of the games. If not, no worries. I'll cover the basic info you need from them. With Zero being our prime factor, let me zoom in and focus on what makes him special to this theory. Zero is a mysterious Reploid, who was discovered in an abandoned lab in some mountains. He was incredibly violent, taking out a whole hunter unit. It wasn't until Sigma stepped in that he was defeated. After the fight, Zero had a change in personality, and he no longer was permanently stuck in a berserker mindset. This was due to him being infected during the battle with the virus that I talked about earlier. While Zero went on to join the Hunters, he still remained an enigma to scientists throughout the X series. And that's because Zero is unanalyzable, meaning scientists of this era cannot understand his systems, cannot duplicate them, and overall leave him as just a massive mystery. So where does this apply to Sergis? Well, it's actually right under our nose. If you remember from when you played X1, Zero blows himself up in Sigma's fortress, leaving himself as just a torso. Sigma's fortress then falls into the ocean, and all that is recovered from Zero is his control chip. Dr. Kane, the leading roboticist, can't rebuild Zero. However, Sergis did. And not only did he rebuild Zero, but he upgraded him as well. The design upgrade that Zero received in X2 even match that of the blueprints in Wily's lab, which are shown the base at the end of Power Fighters. Rather a peculiar coincidence. While that image is often discredited by fans, there is another strong element to Zero's upgrade, his saber. The Z-Saber is stated to be made using X-Buster technology, and made by Sergis. While this might not sound like much because, busters are everywhere. We see Dynamo, this purple guy whose name no one remembers, even generic Joe's using them. So what is special about X-Buster tech? Well, given how X is unable to be completely analyzed, there are features to him that are unknown. When it comes to the Buster, the Rockman X novel, A Regular Report, even stated that Kane only understood about 80% of it. So what didn't he get? Well, the X-Buster has two unique features to it that we don't ever see any other Reploid use: charging and the variable weapon system. Now this may seem like a drawn-out tangent, but this is kind of where it all comes together. Zero's Z-Saber has these functions, or at the very least, close to. According to the Mega Man Zero press release kit, the Z-Saber from X2 is the same one that Zero uses in his own series. And there, we see that the Saber can charge. What's more, Zero's Saber works in conjunction with his learning technique, allowing the Saber to manifest ice, fire, electricity, this giant cool metal sword that shatters on impact for some reason. Don't question it. Just like how X's Buster creates random weapons out of thin air with its variable weapon system. It isn't even a stretch to say that the two are related. Wily knew the variable weapon system, and knowing how it worked, he was able to make the learning technique for Zero. To make a weapon that works with the variable weapon system indicates that Sergis understood tech that wasn't known to the world, much less by the leading robotic expert. If those factors were not enough to get you thinking that there's some merit to this, then allow me to give you a more direct piece of the puzzle. Manga artist Ariga had a website back in the day that detailed his work from Capcom, where he gave insight on all sorts of characters from his Megamix and Gigamix series. Under the page for Dr. Wily, there was one bit that really brought some light to this. It lists the games in which Wily appears, and of that list, X2 is mentioned. Not even just mentioned, but directly to Sergis. He is listed as a Reploid with Wily's memories. While not directly saying that he is Wily, that affirms that there is, without a doubt, a connection to the two. While it might seem easy for some to just brush this off as Ariga was just really a manga artist, one thing to heavily consider is that he takes the series source material very seriously. To emphasize it, at a convention, he engaged with a fan who was really adamant about wanting to see Base with hair, essentially without his helmet. Ariga turned it down initially, as to him, Base doesn't have hair. He's a combat robot, much like the Robot Masters, and he didn't want his art to be taken as a truth or used as a canon example. Eventually, he gave in to the fan and doodled a helmetless Base, with the promise that the doodle wouldn't make its way to the internet. Of course you know it did. He really is hung up on it, deeply regretting ever drawing it. That devotion to the truth of the series makes this information from his site all the stronger. This wasn't something he just thought up or assumed and placed in an info box. No, this information came from Capcom. And no, I'm not going to show the sketch out of respect for his wishes. The Sergis theory has even been addressed in interviews, and each time the result is the same. The answer we get is a hard maybe. Keiji believes that it's best to leave this up in the air and for the players to decide. Which, like, has this dude not seen our fanbase? He refuses to answer the question to keep our imaginations active, which is a load of crap. So, time to put on the detective hat and point out how his refusal is almost a soft admission. Looking at other interviews with him, Keiji has no issue answering other questions regarding, really just similar theories. It was theorized once that Dr. Wile was actually Wily, which he promptly shot down in denial. As well, he's denied the fan-favorite Cataclysm theory of Zero awakening and taking out the classic cast before Wily could seal him. So he has no problems giving hard answers to those theories, but he won't say anything on Sergis. He'll even admit to Wily being alive in some fashion in the X series, but he won't say what he's up to until X5. This might just be a case where his unwillingness to answer kind of is the answer itself. I mean, I guess it could be worse. I remember a certain manga writer telling people a lie because fans figured out the plot twist really early. The theory continues on, into X6. Now, after X5 had a hard establishing of Wily roaming around, and X2 having all the eyebrow raisins with Sergis, we get another character that is assumed to be a robotic avatar of the mad scientist, Isaac. Isaac is said to have been designed with a certain scientist in mind, likely a Katamari dude. I mean, look at his head. No, I joke, but this scientist reference was likely Wily, but I mean that's way too vague. We can't just go off of that, right? Thankfully, there's more to this guy to add onto the theory. Not quite as much as Sergis, but enough to make the theory plausible. Isaac is a Reploid scientist who had been working with Gate, studying Zero's DNA, and creating some top-of-the-line Reploids, like Hymax. During this time with Gate, though, he's concerned with one thing: finding Zero. Gate finds this to be a fruitless endeavor, but Isaac assures him that Zero is out there, that he has seen him. This statement is interesting, as no one that we know of has seen Zero, or even picked up a reading of him on some futuristic radar. Some believe that Isaac is the one who revived Zero, which, despite what Zero tells X, that he hid himself to self-repair, he informs Dr. Light that he actually has no idea how he survived. Isaac's favoritism and connections to Zero are further showcased after Zero defeats Hymax. Once the big lug is down, depending on who done it, Isaac will then react differently. If X is the one who did the job, Isaac is just filled with rage. He lashes out verbally at X, before making a hasty getaway. However, if Zero is the one to defeat Hymax, Isaac is actually filled with joy. He laughs, taken to mocking X for not being able to harm Hymax, while Zero is able to dispose of him with relative ease. I don't know if you ever fought Hymax. There's nothing easy about fighting him. He's annoying. When Zero's had enough of his laughs and moves in, Isaac actually shuts him down. An electrical barrier appears and paralyzes Zero, while Isaac utters something really interesting. He states that he knows Zero better than anyone else, and that now that he knows he is alive, he can capture him at any time. He departs to repair Hymax, leaving Zero in a state of paralysis. Alia remarks at how strong the barrier is, and that its time to only last for a little while, but that it's also designed to protect. This whole interaction raises more questions. I mean, Isaac clearly knows a lot about Zero, but does he know more than Sigma? The guy who knows Zero is the last of Wily's creations, and what his true purpose is? More than that though, he is able to stop Zero dead in his tracks. A trap that clearly is unique to Zero, meaning he knew perfectly Zero's inner making, something of which even Dr. Light doesn't understand. The trap also protecting Zero raises more flags. There's one last piece of evidence to old Isaac here, and honestly, it's the strongest one in my opinion. After Gate is defeated, Isaac just goes cold. He becomes an empty shell of a robot. As X, Aelia just talks to X about, Isaac's body, but as Zero, there's a new bit of dialogue. Zero looks over Isaac's body, and a voice simply known as double question mark speaks out, telling Zero that he is the strongest robot.
行け行くのじゃゼロお前こそが最強のロボットじゃ
And if this were simply Isaac, there really wouldn't be a question to it. They'd have listed it, but this was intentionally made to inform you that this is somebody else speaking. It is weird though, because the voice is familiar. It's actually Isaac's voice, but it's not Isaac speaking. Takeshi Aono is the voice actor, and if we go and look up his work, yes, he voiced somebody in Mega Man Powered Up, Mega Man 8, and even X4. That character was Dr. Wily. Given the context of the statement and the voice attached to it, I mean it's clear that it's Wily himself speaking directly to Zero. Isaac's shell, Wily himself praising Zero, the timing is all too convenient to just be coincidence. And you made it to the end. So, that's the theory. Well, rather theories. And the evidence supporting them. Which really, given everything there, they become less theories and more of what is the connection. Let me know what you think the connections are in the comments below. I also want to give a shout out to some individuals who helped out with this video. Sprigween for the fun Sergis Wily art, as well as the art of myself. Megaquint for having all the gameplay footage one could ask for. And Sidier for translating so many Mega Man scripts. Till next time, rock on!
Yeah!